Timur wasn't merely content to carve a small kingdom and settle in a grand manner as if a baron. No, this boy born in poverty had eyes of grandeur, the likes even emperors envy. Central Asia, a cauldron of warring tribes and petty kingdoms, offered his perfect forge. With ruthless efficiency, he began his consolidation of power. Tribe by tribe, city by city, he expanded. War became diplomacy when victory became certain, and Timur's keen grasp of war turned alliances with promises of stability. Those whose strength rivaled Timur soon came to kneel, as Timur proved time and time again he wouldn't suffer fools or enemies that refused fealty. Whispers began to circulate. Whispers and fears. Were the once famed Khans the sole proprietor of dominion? Or were such pronouncements of might just whispers? Because there now was Timur. Watch closely as these whispers spread, carried on the breath of a new empire, struggling to be born into an old one slowly dying. Far to the south, the scent of wealth, not only that, the stench of disarray. India, not a unified banner with promises of unity, but rather a divided kingdom with factions bickering against each other as a wolf picking meat off a bone. Timur watches now to the Delhi Sultanate under Sultan Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud Shah Tughlaq. Instability festered. For decades, it fermented itself under poor rule. Its rulers all clamoring as wolves at an exposed belly that bled gold coins onto silken floors and satin sheets. But the gold could buy armies and allies if only such riches would stop hoarding it long enough to consider their reign is threatened. The fragrances of the East reached even Samarkand. To Timur, it was a land ripe for plunder, and he, as he does now, and time before, fixed his gaze east. The Peacock throne trembled, soon to taste a Timur, and not a Mahmud. For who could command this region but for him? And soon his coming storm of vengeance shall herald not fire, not famine, and certainly not pestilence. Rather, a new herald of a new conqueror. And how those not Timur among his legion must dread what shall befall them. Delhi, the jewel of the Sultanate, but even jewels can lose their luster. Under the reign of Nasir-ud-Din, Mahmud Shah Tughlaq, a veneer of opulence masked decay. Courtly life continued, the music played, the wine flowed, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. The Sultan's grip was loosening, his coffers emptying, and the whispers of dissent growing louder with every passing day. Out in the streets, where such finery was alien and not afforded even by merit, a different tale. The common folk bore the true weight of the Sultanate's decline. Their stomachs gnawed with hunger, their backs bent by burdens of taxation, but not the Sultan. Their faces etched with worry and doubt. The cost of the Sultanate and its emperors was not measured solely in lost coin, or wasted grain rather, lost potential, and dreams and hope left alone by those charged to uphold them. The Sultan's warelephants, mighty beasts of war, paraded through the streets, a hollow display of power. Symbols of a bygone era, they represented not strength, but the Sultan's dwindling ability to adapt. These magnificent creatures, each a small fortune to maintain, consumed vast resources that a strapped empire could ill afford. Their upkeep was a burden, their vulnerability to clever tactics, a hidden weakness waiting to be exploited. Soon, Timur would show the world how such vulnerabilities aren't forgotten, but become assets against one who once brandished them so flippantly as the Sultan does his might with the beasts of burden that break their legs before they'll see true conflict. The Sultanate was a kingdom divided Within the opulent walls of the palace, whispers of conspiracy filled the air. Rival factions jockeyed for influence, and the stench of betrayal permeated every corner. Regional governors, sensing weakness at the center, tested the limits of their autonomy, challenging the Sultan's authority at every turn, all forgetting while tearing their shared spoils among themselves. As animals, they become prey for another who does not divide but conquer. So it's true that in unity there is strength, but without it, a people become vulnerable. For those at Delhi, I fear to ask when for such divisions invite only wolves hungry, and wolves will see not differences in garb or family, no, merely food. And will Timur not sate himself with this banquet so generously provided at the ignorance and arrogance and greed at their doors? Will he, would he, should he abstain from taking advantage where they give him such liberties of a soon conquered and dying empire that begs to be ended, so at least a death can give clarity, as even living will fail? Now I feel for the certain. From Samarkand, the heart of his burgeoning empire, Timur unleashed his legions. A vast, disciplined force, they marched with the precision of a well-oiled machine, an irresistible tide flowing towards Delhi. Across mountains and deserts they moved, their supply lines stretching like the sinews of a giant. Their organization was impeccable, their purpose singular. They were the instrument of Timur's ambition, the hammer poised to shatter the Peacock throne and claim another jewel for his conquering fist. The first clashes were swift, brutal, and decisive. Timur's scouts, eyes and ears of the advancing army, outmaneuvered and outfought their counterparts. These were no mere skirmishes, but calculated probes, testing the defenses, gauging the strength of the Sultanate's forces. With each encounter, Timur gathered valuable intelligence, the life-giving water to a thirsty general in times where rumor and fear clouded judgment just as dust and smoke did battlefields. With this knowledge, as the spider knows his web and fly their sticky end, this wisdom from the front-line skirmishes painted vivid colors that not only informed of land and opponent might. No, these battles are the heart of the war in miniature that gives our spider, our Timur, the clarity to bring all these disparate elements as his threads, his spiders, as the soldiers at arms, the terrain which his armies can carve the shape of conflict through, or march and bypass through with certainty, so as not to allow any ambush, for a great beast is always vulnerable to those smaller foes beneath its belly. Timur spins his great net toward, and so very close that those very threads start brushing upon where the flies congregate, oblivious to their fate, in their dance and greed that all too will not last now. Reports came in of the Sultan's reliance on war elephants. Timur, a master strategist, pondered this information. He knew the terror these behemoths could inspire, but he also understood their vulnerabilities. For just as a lion is mighty, does not his kind fall by ganging and traps and such? It is with great beast. All those big boys were so full of pride, like a drum, but Timur wasn't one for the noisy, so much as their ends, empty of such prideful things that made such noisy, brash sounds, and soon he sought how this mighty thing is felled, and so such intelligence could make mighty seem meek. In the heart of his camp, Timur convened his war council. The air was thick with anticipation. Maps were unfurled, reports read, the elephant in the room, quite literally, dominating their discussion. How to counter these behemoths, these mountains of flesh and muscle? The question hung heavy. a challenge to Timur's brilliance. Timur, ever the innovator, sought an unconventional solution. A mind as sharp as a tack could split not only wood and thread and thought to get there with all these mighty elements, but then turned back round. So look again, but what did such turning away afford us? Oh, well, tested conqueror of renown, and renown means tested a lot for. He couldn't take each credit given, must only accept that such renown wasn't born through hearsay, and such, it seems, Timur had found himself tested before the elephant, long before Delhi's armies even knew he even wanted their precious treasures, for stories swirled within himself that tested him, that found what might seem so mighty, like an elephant, a beast that is turned by flames, camels loaded as if pack animal, these beasts a bit perturbed by sudden inferno that comes running at them toward elephants with tusks of ivory, so grand must falter, as did Timur once too, until found way to ignite, incite the camels, now set eyes as fire soon seen across battlefields at Delhi. Under the cover of darkness, Timur's plan took shape. Camels, the ships of the desert, were transformed into instruments of war. Loaded with flammable materials, they became ticking time bombs, a spectacle of terror waiting to be unleashed. The element of surprise was key. Timur aimed not just for physical destruction, but for psychological devastation. He would turn the Sultan's own strength against him, transforming the elephants from symbols of power into agents of chaos. The battle commenced, a maelstrom of steel and fury. Then, Timur unleashed his secret weapon. A wave of fire, a living inferno surged forward. The flaming camels, driven by instinct and fear, stampeded towards the enemy lines, a terrifying spectacle that shattered the Sultanate's composure. The very air crackled with the heat of their charge. The ground trembled beneath their hooves. Panic erupted among the elephants. The sight of the approaching inferno, the searing heat, the ear-splitting cries of the camels, it was too much. The mighty beasts, once symbols of invincible power, turned and bolted, trumpeting in terror as they stampeded back through their own ranks, crushing friend and foe alike. The screams of men mingled with the terrified cries of the elephants, creating a symphony of chaos. Timur's forces, disciplined and ruthless, exploited the ensuing disarray. Caltrops scattered across the ground further hampered the enemy's movements, while wagon barricades channeled their retreat into killing zones. The tide had turned. Hand-to-hand combat ensued, a bloody melee where Timur's superior training and tactics proved decisive. The Sultanate's army, once so proud, was broken, scattered, and utterly routed. December 18th, 1398. A date etched in blood and fire. The defenses of Delhi crumbled under the relentless onslaught of Timur's forces. The gates, once symbols of impregnability, splintered and fell, opening the way for the invaders. Chaos reigned. The streets, once vibrant with life, now echoed with the cries of the dying and the clash of steel. Delhi, once a jewel of the East, was subjected to a brutal sack. Buildings burned, homes were ransacked, and the streets ran red with the blood of its inhabitants. The scale of the carnage was immense, a testament to the ruthlessness of Timur's conquest. A dark pall hung over the city, the silence broken only by the wails of the bereaved and the grim sounds of destruction. The spoils of victory were immense. Timur's soldiers plundered the city, seizing gold, jewels, and priceless artifacts. But among the treasures, another kind of prize was sought. Skilled artisans and craftsmen, rounded up and bound, they would be forced to march back to Timur's capital, Samarkand, destined to contribute their talents to the glorification of their captor's empire. Amidst the ruins of Delhi, Timur stood triumphant, surrounded by his commanders and the mountains of plundered wealth. He surveyed his conquest. His expression was a mask of ruthless satisfaction, a conqueror who had bent a city, a kingdom, to his will. The Peacock throne was his, another jewel added to his crown. From the smoldering remains of Delhi, a different kind of procession emerged. A long, sorrowful caravan of captured artisans and craftsmen, their skills now destined to serve Timur's ambitions. Architects, builders, weavers, metalworkers, the best of Delhi's talent, now bound for Samarkand, forced to rebuild and enrich their conqueror's city. In Samarkand, the arrival of the Delhi artisans marked a new era of prosperity. Their skills, honed over generations, were put to work, transforming Timur's capital into a center of art, architecture, and learning. The forced migration, a tragedy for Delhi, became a source of enrichment for Samarkand, a testament to the enduring power of human creativity, even in the face of conquest. Timur's invasion left a gaping wound in the heart of India. The once mighty Delhi Sultanate, already weakened, shattered into a mosaic of warring factions. Regional rulers, sensing opportunity, rose to challenge each other, vying for control over this power vacuum, setting the stage for future conflicts as Timur unwittingly brought forward the next wave and next conquering warrior. From the ashes of Timur's conquest, new seeds would be sown. Generations later, a descendant of Timur, by the name of Babur, would arrive on the Indian scene and carve his place in its destiny with his own ruthlessness, not unsimilar to those he had blood lineage to. Though it must be emphasized, we talk solely of actions, as only Timur truly know what spurred his actions beyond speculation and gossip, mongering, of which such a documentary seeks to educate and dispel ignorance, not so its bitter and poisonous fruits. His legacy, though, had lasting effects across many nations and kingdoms, including the descendants whose name will one day ring just as loud among such halls as once the Mongols, or now Timur's. Babur is their name, now only memory, or if so, lucky forgotten page read somewhere and not thought about by modern Indians, too busy in their worlds, as those, I hope, viewing the Delhi Sultanate and other rulers through the millennia. He would unify those disparate states Timur once trod over and sow anew through death what Timur found fertile from their ignorance by establishing the Mughal Empire, one of the greatest in India's vast history and not so insignificant. Timur, the sword of Islam, Amir Timur, the great lame one, a figure shrouded in both myth and terror, a brilliant military strategist, a ruthless conqueror. His legacy is complex and contradictory. His conquests brought unimaginable destruction and human suffering. He reshaped the map of Asia and laid the very stones where next great empires arose. Whether or not Timur saw this end, we know what occurred and speculate still why he felt not as king among subjects. No, his aspirations laid far, and his deeds proved their ruthless ambition with a pragmatism as refreshing as terrifying, yet also sparked periods of flourishing, albeit on the backs of the vanquished. A conqueror who cast a long shadow over history, shaping generations. And so he ends a reign where none among could contest nor resist what may become a turning point for mankind, if we can merely see with our own modern eyes, not to emulate these dark ends by hopefully less cruel or brutal, and certainly without human misery in such quantities O viewer, I implore to never see any leader or fellow human beings such way at their very lives' behest. Instead, find their errors, their failings, and do all your very meager powers to rise to each other's heights, yes, even their heights at the top of power, to guide rather than take, to create unity rather than chaos. In Samarkand, Timur's legacy is etched in stone and tile. The Registan Square, a testament to his vision, stands as a symbol of his empire's grandeur. The Gur-e-Amir, his mausoleum, a breathtaking monument to his ambition. His influence resonated throughout Central Asia, inspiring awe and imitation in later rulers. These monuments to Timur, in their silent language, are an epitaph to what men like Timur are driven by, where all men of Timur's ilk, and many, not few, oh, but too many alike, to impose their will through grand structures, just as impose might through conquered cities, as the one, and certainly is just a physical representation that all the earth shall be, and perhaps more someday. So that way Timur would not end simply because all souls who could hear or see know where Timur is, to where he would not suffer his name nor monuments to go, as souls always will go, where such power can have permanence only denied, when all too must go to rest in the end. The echoes of Timur's conquest reverberated across India for centuries. The political landscape was forever altered, the balance of power irrevocably shifted. His invasion hastened the decline of the Delhi Sultanate and laid the groundwork for the rise of new empires, new dynasties. But oh, those so soon forgotten who found themselves by his sword. I dread to imagine what such a man was thinking, for any and many at end, such as the end that soon would fall upon Delhi, was an ending for some, a beginning for, oh, so very few among so many, and fewer still will even find themselves considered among historians. So we can try to capture the context. Oh, let this be a testament for to not just simply take histories, accounts from texts in museums, as though no man lived under Timur. So how then, oh how then indeed, as such, this video has such aspirations, do all but ignore context, or simply listen as is spoken what others among ourselves would whisper among their friends. A sin indeed, I implore, and I wish never must have such sentimentality, as no life is meager. Not now, not as it happens, surely not when reflecting such matters, even for those among our fellow people, or history. For history and such matters will merely happen again, as these great kingdoms once stood Timur, a name whispered in awe and terror, a military genius, a ruthless conqueror, his legacy a tapestry woven with threads of brilliance and brutality. He stands as a stark reminder of the complexities of history, a testament to all of it, good and bad, of the capacity for great evil within great leaders of those meant to lead. His shadow stretches across the centuries, touching the very threads of India's destiny, forever intertwined now within every corner, in every culture. For who is remembered lives just that little, and that is perhaps why even a documentary as this once, and perhaps more so, should do its diligence, for when such nuance isn't present, how, then, oh how, indeed, for Timur knew, and he ensured his ruthlessness, as we should, our commitment to seeking true nuance in legacies far and grand, even those as the small lives we all among one another share, with these nuances being as stones in some far greater river of our collective memories of history's most enduring characters. What legacies does our viewer seek as they continue out their lives today and next year? Or will you simply seek nothing? I, too, would seek a legacy, not unlike his "oh, what folly," perhaps a small corner, and no name spoken or whispered in reverence, as perhaps all souls not among such hallowed conquerors deserve. But do all Timur souls must only seek grandeur? What can grand aspirations at life's expense gain rather? For the great men few, and few will last or remember. Except, oh, only Timur. Timur is indeed exceptional, and if that be, that I shudder indeed, for not him, but for all those who become casualties for anyone so very determined to forge empires of any kind, whether metal and mortar, or land and blood of a people so long past.